Captain Jake Morrison walked through the long metal hallway of Harmony Point Station. His boots made soft clicking sounds on the floor. The walls around him were white and clean, with strange blue lights that the aliens had built into them. Had never seen anything like this place before. Jake was nervous, but he did not show it on his face. He had trained for many years to keep his feelings hidden. That was why Admiral Lisa Chang had picked him for this job. She said he was the calmest man in the whole Earth fleet. Today, he would need to be calmer than ever before. The hallway ended. At a big door made of some kind of silver metal, 2 guards stood there. They were not human. One was tall and thin with blue skin. The other looked like a giant bug walking on 2 legs. Both guards looked at Jake with cold eyes. Captain Morrison. From Earth, Jake said, "I am here for the trade meeting." The blue guard touched something on the wall. The door opened with a soft whoosh sound. Jake walked through and found himself in the biggest room he had ever seen. The ceiling was so high he could not see the top. Windows all around showed the stars and planets outside. In the center of the room was a table. But this was not like any table Jake knew. It was made of clear crystal and was perfectly round. The crystal seemed to glow with its own light. Right now, it was giving off a soft white glow that made everything in the room look peaceful. Around the table sat the strangest group Jake had ever seen. These were the ambassadors from 12 different worlds. Each one looked completely different from the others. On his left sat a creature that looked like a giant ant, but walked upright like a person. His name was Ambassador Crix from the Bug world. Its big black eyes watched Jake as he entered. Next to the bug was something that floated in a clear tube filled with gas. Inside the tube, lights moved and danced. This was how the energy beings from Luminar traveled. Across from Jake sat a being covered in silver scales. This was High Commander Zectrix from the Zentari Empire. The Zentari looked like dragons that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Zectrix's yellow eyes followed Jake's every move. There were others too. Beings made of living rock from the crystal world. Machines that had somehow become alive and could think. Creatures with tentacles instead of arms. And many more that Jake could not even begin to understand. But there were also 2 humans at the table. Ambassador Kate Sullivan sat near the center, her hands folded calmly in front of her. She was Earth's best negotiator. Next to her was Commander Helen Brooks from Earth Intelligence. Helen's job was to watch and listen for any tricks. The other species might try to pull. Jake took his seat between the bug ambassador and the floating energy being. As soon as he sat down, he felt something strange. The crystal table seemed to be watching him. It felt warm under his hands, and the light inside it changed slightly. He remembered what Admiral Chang had told him about this table. The table reads emotions, she had said. When people get angry, it turns red. When they are calm, it stays blue. The aliens built it to help keep peace during meetings. They believe it will stop fights before they start. Jake looked around the table again. Every alien face was watching him. He could feel their suspicion. They thought humans were dangerous. They thought humans could not control their anger. This whole meeting was Earth's chance to prove them wrong. Kate Sullivan stood up and cleared her throat. Thank you all for coming to Harmony Point. We are here to discuss the Third Sector Trade Agreement. This agreement will decide how all our worlds can work together in peace. The crystal table stayed white as Kate spoke. Her voice was calm and professional. She had practiced these words many times. Earth wants to be a good partner, Kate continued. We want fair trade that helps everyone. We're not here to take anything from anyone. We are here to find ways we can all benefit together. High Commander Zectrix made a sound like a growl. Humans say they want peace, but humans are violent. Your species fights wars on your own planet. How can we trust you not to fight wars with us? The crystal table flickered slightly toward yellow. Jake could feel the tension in the room growing. All the alien eyes were watching to see how the humans would react to this challenge. Kate's voice stayed calm. It is true that humans have had wars. But we have also learned from those wars. We have learned that fighting only brings pain. That is why we want to join the galactic community. We want to learn better ways. Ambassador Crix clicked his mandibles together rapidly. Jake had learned this was how the bug people showed they were thinking hard. Humans learn, yes, but humans also forget. Your history shows this pattern repeating. The floating energy being pulsed brighter. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music made of electricity. The Luminari have studied human behavior. You show great capacity for both creation and destruction. This makes you unpredictable. Jake watched the crystal table as each alien spoke. The white light was slowly turning to pale yellow. The table was picking up the growing suspicion and worry in the room. If it turned red, the meeting might end badly before it really began. One of the rock beings spoke in a voice like grinding stones. The Shardlings have seen human mining operations. You take resources quickly, without thought for tomorrow. It concerns us greatly. More yellow crept into the table's glow. Jake could see Kate's jaw tighten slightly, though her voice stayed level. Earth mining has improved greatly in recent years. We have learned to take only what we need and to restore what we can. A machine being with bright red lights for eyes whirred softly. The Synthesis Collective has analyzed human decision-making patterns. Emotions often override logic in your species. This makes long-term planning difficult. The table was now clearly yellow, with hints of orange starting to appear. Jake realized that every species had come prepared with arguments against humans. This was not going to be a simple trade discussion. This was a test and maybe even a trap. But Admiral Chang had chosen Jake for exactly this reason. While the other aliens spoke and the tension grew, Jake sat perfectly still. His breathing was slow and steady. His heart rate stayed normal. His hands rested calmly on the crystal surface. He thought about his grandmother's garden back on Earth. She had taught him to find peace even in difficult times. When everything around you is chaos, she used to say you can choose to be the calm in the storm. Jake chose to be calm. Slowly, very slowly, the crystal table began to glow a little. Less yellow. 3 days passed at the big space station. Jake Morrison sat at the crystal table every morning, every afternoon, and every evening. The meetings went on for hours. His back was sore from sitting so long, but he never showed it on his face. Crystal table had stayed mostly white with small bits of yellow during those 3 days. Sometimes it would flash orange when one of the aliens got excited about something. But Jake noticed that whenever he kept very calm, the table would slowly return to its peaceful white glow. Kate Sullivan was doing her best. She answered every question the aliens asked. She showed them charts about Earth's trade numbers. She explained human laws and customs. She promised that Earth would follow all the galactic rules for fair trade. But Jake could see that something was wrong. The aliens were not really listening to Kate's answers. They seemed to be waiting for something else to happen. On the morning of the 4th day, Jake sat down at his usual spot between Ambassador Crix and the floating energy being. The room felt different today. The aliens were sitting straighter in their chairs. Their eyes were sharper. Even the air seemed to buzz with tension. High Commander Zekrex was the first to speak. His dragon-like face looked serious and angry. We have been talking for 3 days about trade. But there is something more important we must discuss first. Crystal table flickered yellow immediately. Jake felt his stomach tighten, but he kept his breathing slow and steady. What is more important than trade? Kate asked. Her voice was still calm, but Jake heard a tiny hint of worry in it. Zekrex stood up. He was very tall, much taller than any human. His silver scales caught the light from the crystal table. We must talk about the Proxima Colony incident. We must talk about human violence. The table flashed bright orange for a moment. All around the room, the other aliens leaned forward in their seats. Jake realized this was what they had been waiting for. Kate's face went pale, but she kept her voice steady. The Proxima Colony incident was investigated by the Galactic Council. All proper procedures were followed. Were they? Zekrix's voice was like the sound of metal scraping against stone. Or did humans hide the truth? Did humans lie to protect themselves? Commander Helen Brooks whispered something in Kate's ear. Jake could not hear what she said, but he saw Kate's eyes widen slightly. Whatever Helen had told her was not good news. Ambassador Crix clicked his mandibles together rapidly. The Krex have long memories. We remember every detail of what happened at Proxima Colony. Humans attacked first. Humans were the aggressors. That is not true, Kate said, but her voice was not as strong as before. Human colonists were defending themselves and their families. The rock being from the Shardling world spoke in its grinding voice. Defense or attack, the result was the same. Zentari soldiers died. Zentari ships were destroyed. This shows human nature. The crystal table was now glowing steady, orange with flashes of red appearing and disappearing. Jake could feel the emotions in the room like heat from a fire. He forced himself to think about his grandmother's garden again. He remembered the smell of her flowers and the sound of bees buzzing in the summer air. The energy being in the floating tube pulsed brighter. The Luminari have studied the incident carefully. Human behavior patterns show escalation tendencies. When threatened, humans become more dangerous, not less. Jake watched Kate as she tried to answer each accusation. But every time she spoke, another alien would interrupt with a new charge against humanity. They were working together, he realized. This was planned. The machine being with red eyes whirred loudly. The Synthesis Collective has calculated human aggression probabilities. In 73.6% of conflicts involving humans, violence levels increase beyond initial parameters. Those statistics are taken out of context, Kate said. Her calm mask was starting to crack. You are not considering the circumstances that led to those conflicts? Circumstances do not matter, Zekrix growled. What matters is results. What matters is that humans cannot control their violent impulses. Crystal table was now mostly red with only small patches of orange. The room felt hot and dangerous. Jake could see sweat on Kate's forehead, even though the station's air was cool. A new alien spoke up. This one looked like a giant jellyfish, but with bones visible through its clear skin. Jake had not heard it speak before. The Ethereal Collective has watched human expansion into space. Every world humans touch becomes a place of conflict within 10 rotations. That is absolutely false, Kate said, and for the first time her voice rose above its usual diplomatic tone. Human colonies are peaceful. We have built schools and hospitals, not weapons factories. Yet you bring weapons to every world, another alien said. This one was covered in thick fur and had 6 arms. Human ships carry more weapons than any other species. For protection, Kate insisted, the galaxy can be dangerous. We only carry weapons to defend ourselves. Defense Zekrix repeated the word like it tasted bad. Always humans claim defense. But human weapons kill just as well, whether you call it attack or defense. The crystal table was now deep red and pulsing like a heartbeat. Jake could feel the anger and suspicion from all the aliens washing over him like waves. But in the middle of all this chaos, he sat perfectly still. Commander Helen Brooks leaned over to whisper in Jake's ear, "Captain, I'm reading weapons charging on several alien ships in the fleet outside. I think this whole meeting was a setup to make us look bad." Jake nodded slightly to show he understood, but he did not speak. He kept his hands flat on the crystal table and his breathing slow and deep. Around him, the argument grew louder and more heated. Human nature is violent, Crix chittered. This cannot be changed. This is why humans cannot be trusted with galactic trade routes. You're wrong about us, Kate said. Her diplomatic training was slipping away as the pressure mounted. Humans have changed. We have learned to be better. Have you? Zekrix leaned across the table toward her. Then why does your captain sit there planning violence even now? All eyes turned to Jake. He could feel 12 different species staring at him, waiting for him to prove their point. The crystal table under his hands was blood red and hot to the touch, but Jake Morrison just sat there, breathing slowly, thinking about flowers and bees and his grandmother's gentle hands teaching him to find peace in any storm. Very slowly, the red glow under his palms began to fade just a little bit. Jake Morrison felt all the alien eyes watching him. The crystal table under his hands was hot and red like burning coals. Every species around the table was waiting for him to do something violent or angry. They wanted him to prove that humans could not control themselves. High Commander Zekrix pointed one clawed finger at Jake. Look at him. Look at the human soldier. His body shows the signs of aggression preparation. His muscles are tense. His breathing has changed. This is what humans do when they plan violence. Ambassador Crix clicked his mandibles together excitedly. The Crex can smell the chemicals his body is making. Fear chemicals. Fight chemicals. Species cannot hide their true nature. Jake knew they were right about one thing. His body was preparing for danger. His heart was beating faster. His muscles were getting ready to move quickly if needed. But this was not because he wanted to fight. This was because his military training had taught him to always be ready for trouble. The floating energy being pulsed with bright light. The Luminari can see the electrical patterns in his brain. He's calculating escape routes. He's thinking about weapons. This proves our point about human nature. Kate Sullivan looked at Jake with worry in her eyes. She could see the trap closing. Around them, every natural human response to stress was being used as evidence against their entire species. The machine being with red eyes made a loud beeping sound. A synthesis collective confirms elevated stress hormones detected in the human captain. Fight or flight response is activating as predicted. This is exactly what we expected, said the six-armed furry alien. Humans cannot sit in a peaceful meeting without their bodies preparing for war. The crystal table was now so red, it hurt to look at. The light was angry and hot. Jake could feel the heat through his uniform, but he also felt something else. He felt the same feeling he used to get when his grandmother would find him upset about something. She would sit him down in her garden and say, "Jake, the world is full of noise and anger, but you do not have to add to it. You can choose to be quiet water instead of a rushing river." Jake closed his eyes. He thought about quiet water, thought about still ponds that reflected the sky perfectly. He thought about his grandmother's soft voice telling him that the strongest people were often the quietest ones. Slowly, Jake's breathing became deeper and slower. His heart rate began to drop. His muscles relaxed one by one. The military alertness in his mind faded away, replaced by the calm his grandmother had taught him to find. The aliens around the table became confused. They had expected Jake to get angry or scared or defensive. Instead, he was becoming more peaceful than he had been all week. The crystal table began to change. The angry red color started to fade to orange, then to yellow, then slowly toward white. But the aliens were not happy about this change. "He is trying to trick the table," Zekrix growled. "He is using some kind of human mind control technique." "There is no mind control," Kate said. Her voice was stronger now that she saw Jake staying calm. "Captain Morrison is simply choosing to remain peaceful." "Impossible," chittered Ambassador. "Crix, no species can control their stress responses so completely. He must be using drugs or technology." Commander Helen Brooks spoke up for the first time. "Captain Morrison is not using any enhancements. He is doing exactly what he appears to be doing. He is choosing to stay calm." The rock being from the Shardling world made a grinding sound of disbelief.
Ow.
No creature can simply choose to override biological responses. This is not natural. Jake opened his eyes and looked around the table. His voice was very quiet when he spoke, but everyone heard him clearly. "You are right. It is not natural. It is something much better than natural. It is a choice." The jellyfish-like ethereal being rippled with confusion. "Choice cannot overcome biology. This is impossible according to all known science." "Maybe your science does not understand humans very well," Jake said. His voice was still soft and calm. "You think we are violent because we can fight? But you do not understand that the same strength that makes us good at fighting also makes us good at choosing not to fight." The crystal table was now glowing with pure white light. Some of the aliens looked uncomfortable, as if the peaceful light bothered them more than the angry redhead. "This proves nothing," Zekrix said, but his voice was less certain than before. "One human sitting quietly for a few minutes does not prove anything about your species." Jake nodded. "You are absolutely right. One human staying calm proves nothing. But maybe I can show you something that will prove more." He reached for the communication device on his wrist. Several aliens tensed up, thinking he was reaching for a weapon. But Jake moved very slowly and kept his other hand flat on the crystal table. "Admiral Chang," Jake said into the communicator, "I need you to send something to the conference room. Send all the classified files about the Proxima Colony incident. Send everything we have been keeping secret." Kate Sullivan's eyes went wide. "Jake, you cannot do that." "Those files are classified for good reasons, I know," Jake said.
What?
"But these delegates think we are hiding something. They think we are violent and dishonest. Maybe it is time to show them the truth." Commander Helen Brooks grabbed Jake's arm. "Captain, those files will cause a diplomatic disaster. Some of the information in there will embarrass several species represented at this table." "I know that too," Jake said. His voice was still perfectly calm. "But I think it is time for everyone to see what really happened at Proxima Colony." Zekrix leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. "What truth are you hiding, human? What violence are you trying to cover up?" Jake looked directly at the Zentari commander. "No violence that we started. Plenty of violence that was done too. Us." The crystal table pulsed with bright white light. Round the room, the alien delegates exchanged nervous glances. They had come here expecting to reveal human secrets. They had not expected humans to start revealing secrets about everyone else. "Admiral Chang?" Jake said again into his communicator. "Please transmit the files now." They waited for the files to arrive. Jake sat perfectly still and perfectly calm. But he could feel something building in the room. It was not anger or fear. It was something much more dangerous to the carefully planned meeting. It was the anticipation of truth. Jake Morrison sat at the crystal table and waited. The white light from the table was steady and bright. Around him, 12 different alien species watched with worried eyes. They were no longer sure what was going to happen. A soft beeping sound filled the room. Admiral Chang's voice came through the speakers in the ceiling. "Captain Morrison, I am sending the Proxima Colony files to your conference room now, all of them. You sure about this?" "I am sure," Jake said. His voice was calm and clear. The wall screen behind Kate Sullivan lit up with files and documents. Video recordings began to play. Data scrolled across the screen faster than anyone could read it all, but the important parts were easy to see. The first video showed human colonists on Proxima Colony. There were families with children. They were building homes and planting crops. They had no weapons except simple tools for farming and construction. High Commander Zekrix leaned forward to look at the screen. His confident expression was starting to change. The next video showed Zentari warships approaching the human colony. The ships were large and covered with weapons. The humans in the video looked scared. They sent messages asking why the Zentari ships were there. Ambassador Crix's mandibles stopped clicking. He was staring at the screen in silence. The video continued. It showed Zentari soldiers attacking the human settlement without warning. They fired energy weapons at houses where families lived. They destroyed the crops that humans had spent months growing. They gave no reason for the attack. The floating energy being dimmed its light. This is not the report we were given by the Galactic Council. More videos played. They showed human colonists trying to protect their children. The humans had found some old hunting rifles in a storage building. These were not military weapons. They were simple guns meant for hunting animals for food. Kate Sullivan watched the screen with tears in her eyes. She had read reports about Proxima Colony, but she had never seen the actual videos before. The screen showed human parents standing in front of their homes with these simple weapons. They were not attacking anyone. They were just trying to keep Zentari soldiers from hurting their families. The humans only fired when Zentari soldiers tried to enter houses with children inside. Admiral Chang's voice explained through the speakers. Every shot the humans fired was to protect innocent people. The crystal table began to vibrate slightly. The white light inside it was getting brighter. The video showed what happened next. Zentari soldiers retreated to their ships. But instead of leaving, they fired large weapons at the human settlement from space. They destroyed everything. Homes, farms, and many of the people Jake had just watched trying to protect their families. High Commander Zekrix stood up from his chair. His face showed shock and something that might have been shame. This is not what we were told happened. We were told that humans attacked our ships first. Who told you that? Jake asked. His voice was still calm, but now it had an edge to it. More files appeared on the screen. These were official Galactic Council reports. The reports said that humans had attacked Zentari ships without cause. They said that Zentari forces had only defended themselves. The reports made the humans look like the attackers and the Zentari look like victims, but at the bottom of each false report was a signature. The signature belonged to Council Member Vrax, the jellyfish-like being who sat at their table. Ethereal Collective representative began to ripple with agitation. All the other aliens turned to stare at Vrax. "You lied to us," the machine being said to Vrax. Its red lights flashed angrily. "You gave us false information about the humans." Vrax tried to float higher in its containment field. Reports were simplified for clarity. Full truth would have been too complex for proper council decisions. Simplified. Kate Sullivan stood up, her diplomatic mask finally falling away completely. "You called genocide simplified? You called the murder of families simplified?" The crystal table was vibrating harder now. The bright white light was starting to pulse. Jake placed both hands flat on the table's surface. "There is more," he said. Quietly, more files appeared on the screen. These showed communications between Vrax and several other species governments. The messages revealed a plan to make humans look violent and dangerous. The plan was to keep humans out of galactic trade, so that the other species could control more resources. Ambassador Crix read the messages and began clicking his mandibles in distress. The Crix were told that humans had killed Zentari civilians, and this was a lie. The Shardlings were told that humans wanted to strip mine our crystal worlds, the rock being said in its grinding voice. This was also a lie. One by one, each alien species realized they had been tricked. They had been given false information to make them hate and fear humans. The real truth was that humans were just trying to live peacefully among the stars. High Commander Zekrix looked directly at Jake. "Human Captain, why did you reveal this truth? You could have kept these secrets. You could have made deals with us in private." Jake thought about his grandmother's garden again. He thought about her teaching him that the strongest people were often the quietest ones. But he also remembered something else she used to say. "My grandmother taught me that sometimes you have to speak loudly enough for everyone to hear the truth," Jake said. "Even if speaking that truth breaks things that people thought were solid." The crystal table was now shaking so hard that the other furniture in the room was moving. The white light inside it was getting brighter and brighter. "What is happening?" "To the table?" Kate asked with worry in her voice. Commander Helen Brooks checked her instruments. "The emotional readings are off the charts. The table is picking up feelings from all 12 species at once. Shame, anger, betrayal, relief, hope. The crystal cannot process this much emotion." The table continued to shake. Cracks began to appear in the crystal surface. "It is going to break," the energy being said with something like wonder in its voice. "The truth is too powerful for the table to contain." Jake remained perfectly calm, even as the table shook under his hands. Sometimes when everything falls apart, it makes room for something better to be built. The crystal table gave one final, brilliant flash of white light. Then it exploded. The blast was not violent or dangerous. It was more like a soap bubble popping, but much larger and brighter. Crystal fragments floated gently through the air like snow. No one was hurt, but everyone was covered in tiny pieces of glowing crystal. Jake sat in his chair, brushing crystal dust off his uniform. The table was completely gone. In its place was just empty space, where 12 species could look at each other without any barriers. "Well," Jake said with a small smile, "I stayed calm. The table still exploded anyway." High Commander Zekrix began to laugh. It was a sound like rocks falling down a mountain, but it was definitely laughter. "Human Morrison, your species is even more unpredictable than we thought. We expected you to lie to protect yourselves. Instead, you told truths that protected everyone." In the end, the meeting continued without a table. The 12 species signed the trade agreement while sitting on the floor, surrounded by glowing crystal dust. And for the first time in galactic history, the agreement was signed not because everyone trusted each other, but because everyone had finally learned to tell the truth.